Good morning, Adab, Sat Sri Akal, Namaskar. Now this is going to be my 165th video in continuation to the resumption cases. Now this is a bungalow number 17, survey number 236, having a small area about approximately 5 acres, owned by Mr. Raj from Jhansi. On the north, it had survey number 233 and 235. South, survey number 15. East, you have survey number 237 and 239. On the west, you have survey number 15. And the owner was given a meager amount of about 22,000 rupees when the resumption notice in April 1976 was given. Rajesh Pal Talwar had in turn acquired this bungalow, which he presumed from Manoo Lal Seth. And since the year 1970, the bungalow was in continuous ownership of the present owner. We have to understand the pattern in some of the cases, what the government was doing during the period of 70s and from 70s to 80s majorly. Most of the bungalow owners, if they changed hands, they were on hire, policies were being drafted and the department was getting aggressive on resumption. And these resumptions were moreover arbitrary, They never really consulted, they had nothing in place, reason or public purpose, nothing. So when finally this bungalow in January was given a resumption notice, and the most important part, I will read that resumption notice again, when it said 15,123 rupees to be given as compensation to the amount what the Mr. Talwar had paid during his purchase time. In case the amount of compensation offered is not acceptable to you, you are at liberty, if you so desire, to remove the structure so as to leave the land in the same condition in which it was before the erection. I am specifically reading this line in these videos. Why? Because this line is actually your savior. In the recent orders, resumption notices, many language changes have taken place. So now it clearly reads, if you are not satisfied with the amount called 15,200 or something, and you are given a right that you can remove your property. That is your structure. Now this is that catch-22. Guys, bet on. Won't let an inch go. So now, what did Raj ji, who was actually fighting this resumption notice, pleaded in his entire case? It's very important to understand his entire pleading stood on Durga Das Sood case of Kasauli cantonment. So the pleadings which were made in that case regarding the conclusion of the House Accommodation Act and the findings made by that hence this regulation under which power is sought to be exercised in resuming the grant and taking possession of the house is not an existing law or law which has the statutory force, as it had quite a long time back been superseded and repealed and enacted by a legislature, and thereafter the Cantonment Act 1924 also has come into existence, and there is also a provision for the acquisition of the immovable properties in that act. Therefore, in the face of these enactments, this regulation, which was however enacted by the competent authority, cannot now be said to have the force of law, as it ceased to be a law as long back as 1902. And the provisions now exist in the Cantonment Act 1924 for acquisition of property. Besides them, there are cantonment property rules in 1925 along with cantonment administration rules in 1927, which also deal with the acquisition of properties within the cantonment area. Therefore, the law is not an existing law. Now, so what is the whole story going? That GGO was moreover abolished after the introduction of House Accommodation Act Bill 1898 and gradually coming into an act called House Accommodation Act 1902. Now, the Himachal High Court has ultimately quashed the resumption of grant by the Union of India. From this, the Learned Council wants that this regulation GGO 179 1836 no longer holds good, and it ceased to be an existence subsequent to the passing of several enactments one after another by the legislature, and therefore no power could be exercised under this order, which is now a dead letter. In my opinion, the contentions of the Learned Council in the petitioner appears to be quite correct. The order was purely executive order, which without any statutory sanction behind it, and it was not an existing law, and no such power from depriving the property owner from its property could be exercised. So now the whole part is being played on that the GGO has been superseded and it has no statutory powers. The whole case of Honorable Court was pronounced on this very judgment of 1994. So finally, Mr. Hemraj won the case. A review was filed by the Union of India in 1996, CM number 1491 of 1995, in the Civil Writ 354 of 1971. The prayer was very simple, and it took the case of Harish Anand's Faizabad 1995 Supreme Court, and the entire review was looked on and the judgment was overturned. Now, something, in a review, if the legal fraternity understands, and no, a layman would also like to, a review is only subjected to the illegalities of the judgment. A part of additional evidence or a part of reference which must have come later to the judgment are not generally a part of the review. But in this case, the Honorable Court looked into a judgment which came later from the Supreme Court, that is Harish Anand. And finally, it gave a finding and evidence that the bungalow is an OGB under GGO 179 and it can be resumed. So, friends, why did I pick up this case? It's a very small briefing which is in my hand and which is available on the websites of any court library. When the government is going for a review, you even have additional evidence which is followed by a judgment in that review, and that entire purpose of the review gets defeated in favor of the government. It gets uphold in the favor of the government. But when it comes to a normal layman like you and me, a review is generally thrown. I know the Pune judgment in 2015 was looking for a review of and the Supreme Court did not entertain the review at all. Why? There could have been better judgments which were not picked up at the time of the order passed. But well, this is it. And the other part in this entire case was discussed was the Raj Singh case from Meerut. So these two cases, Raj Singh and Harish Anand, are becoming very dangerous for all cases. Surinder Kumar Vakil from Sagar Cantonment, Justice Tekchand from Ambala. So these are the judgments which need to be countered for further benefit for the bungalow owners. What do we do? And it is very surprising. One of their pedigree owner, Mr. Bhatia, was in touch with us in 2010, and he wrote a letter to the All India Cantonment Bungalow Owners Association, which is in my hand. And this letter even then spoke of many things, how the judgment was taken. His father passed away in 2009. And they started demolishing the bungalow, and finally they made this bungalow into a park. Now look at the resumption is for a park, so there is no public purpose of resumption. Mr. Bhatia even wrote letters in RTI information when we were in talking, and the other pedigree owners were brought in by him. Arun Bhatia, Atul Bhatia, Shrimati Santosh Bhatia, and all these people had been named, and the lease agreement done by their forefathers was also talked about. What is happening, how many open lands are yet in Jhansi cantonment. So all these things were being done. But what really transpired is nothing. You'll be surprised, the bungalow owners, since the pedigree is grown, have not even been compensated to that value which they evaluated to 15,000 rupees. I would request every bungalow owner must make sure, instead of purely fighting your case on some other case referred to, like most of our Indian advocates and myself would love to do this, let's pick up a reference case, let's bring in the pleadings from there and influx them into our judgment, into our plaint. No, this will not happen. This case was taken up on 2 points, Durgadas Sood and Raj Singh. What happened? Everybody knows. Harish Anand came in 95 and the case was thrown back. We get nothing because we don't have evidence. We don't have who purchased this property, when was this grant given. There's nothing. Prior to the GLR of 1927, we don't even have those land records. So please, if we really have to work out, there are many bungalow owners like this. I have a huge list of Mau Cantonment, Jabalpur, where bungalows, Allahabad, where bungalows have been resumed and the pedigrees have not been compensated. Why? I just came across a list of Pune Cantonment. Prior to 1980, so many bungalows were resumed there. Now, what is their status? Were they actually being compensated either? Because 1957, the policies of government started for resumption. And under that, please friends, there was a right for compensation. I know some bungalow owners who have not been compensated. And I met their third line pedigrees. I can work for their compensation, but we need to pay out. So 13 years gone down the line, another 20 years will go down the line, and now this bungalow owner will not fight for ownership, he will fight for compensation. So this is a very major issue, that one, we fight for resumption for 15-20 years, later on we come back and we again fight the system for compensation. And I'm just recently seeing the third intermediary which comes into it is that the courts then order, okay fine, we refer you to arbitration. Now under the Arbitration Act you come back to us and fight for your rights of arbitration rights. So we've got three systems to fight. So the government knows this and they leave it to, okay fine, next 20-30 years the pedigree would change and 2 generations, 3 generations will not sit together. The division of the compensation would be in such an amount that one will say, yeah, I am getting just 1/3 or 1/5 or 1/6 of it. Why would I fight? Leave it, yeah. And the property goes to the government without being compensated. I would call today, let's do one thing. I'll fight the case for entire India's compensatory resumed bungalows. And let's make a pool, whatever compensation comes, let's take an affidavit from all the pedigree owners. 50% of the money will flow into the All India Cantonment Bungalow Owners Association. I'll fight your case. Okay? So again I am saying, we are old grants, not converted into new grants by the Britishers as per the 1765 and 1795 order. So just fight on that. Good day.